David Hockney is here. He is considered to be one of Britain's greatest contemporary artists. Yet he is perhaps best known for immortalizing the city of Los Angeles in art. Over the years, his paintings and photography have reflected his fascination with swimming pools and the landscape of California. Recently, he put down his paintbrush to concentrate on a new book. Secret Knowledge is Hockney's study of the use of optics in the works of the great masters. His theory that Western art has been dependent on optical devices for 400 years is at the center of a debate in the art world. I'm pleased to welcome David Hockney to this table for a conversation about this, and my hope that later on we'll go to Los Angeles and do a profile of him about all of his work. Welcome.
Well, very good.
Great to have you here. I already like you. You are going to come to New York, and Saturday morning you're going to have it out and explain exactly what your theory is, and you've brought all these art historians together, and it's go mano a mano.
Well, I didn't do it. Ren Weschler did that. And actually, it's not just my theory. Lots of other people would share it as well. I've just probably pushed it a little further back than people thought, that's all. But I think there's lots of people thought the same thing for a long time.
And what are we talking about?
We're talking about optical projections, which, after all, that's what television is.
Yeah, exactly.
And they were used by artists. Now, how were they made? Most people think cameras were invented in the 19th century, but they're very old, actually. In fact, it's perfectly natural. It's a natural thing. A pinhole in a room produces an image on the opposite wall. But people have thought that lenses developed by the 17th century, but we did discover, the main discovery I made was it was possible to make projections with a mirror, not just a lens.
Yeah.
Now, that was not known in the world of art. It was known in the world of science, but of course they're very far apart today. They weren't, of course, in the 15th century. But I found that out when we found it out and did it. I mean, meaning actually anybody can do it at home. Any shaving mirror or makeup mirror is a concave mirror.
And so what would you do at home?
If you take a very bright window and the room is reasonably dark, and you hold the mirror up at the edge of the window, you will get a picture of what's across the street upside down on the wall in color, and it will move.
Okay, now what are you saying? Let's take that image, because they can get it now. Take that image, and what would artists do? How would they use that image?
Well, first of all, they'd be rather thrilled. I mean, we were thrilled when we saw it, you know, last year. So 600 years ago, they would be very, very thrilled. In fact, probably even frightened of it, because it's magical. It seems magical.
And you've got to remember, no cameras at that time. And in fact, you believe photography killed this.
Well, remember, there were cameras. Photography is a chemical invention.
I understand.
You see, they know there were cameras. I mean, the first photographs were made with cameras that were made for landscape artists.
Yeah.
Naturally, they weren't made for photographers. That's what they used, and but that's known only until, as I say, the date about it's the 17th century. Right. To take it back 200 years before that, you have to involve some. We know probably there weren't lenses, but there were mirrors. And there's certainly a mirror at the back of Mr. and Mrs. Arnolfini.
Yeah.
That's a convex mirror, but the back of a convex mirror is a concave mirror. It's just going the other way. And that would project an image of that chandelier onto the canvas. In fact, we did it. We had a chandelier made, a replica, and with a mirror just 4.5 inches in diameter, projected it the exact size it is in Van Eyck's painting.
And then what did you do?
Well, I then assumed, well, he would have known this.
Yeah.
And here was a technique to draw this very difficult chandelier with this equipment. We know that equipment existed in 1430.
Why would you assume that great artists would use it?
Because artists would use any tool available. Why wouldn't they? I mean, it seems to me odd to assume they wouldn't, actually. That's odd. Remember, nobody's ever seen a photograph. Nobody. You're seeing the three-dimensional world on a two-dimensional plane. And we're all fascinated by that. Isn't that the appeal of television? Isn't that the appeal of pictures? And this was a moving picture, remember? It's in colour and it's moving. And if you do it today, people are quite taken with it. I mean, when I was showing it to people in LA, we set up with a cabbage outside a window, and there it was spinning round. I mean, people were, yeah, they had no idea it could be done, actually. And it's not written about. That is not written about. The concave mirror is not in text. Why? Well, I think it's artists would keep it secret. They would, actually. My original title for the book, of course, was Lost Knowledge, but the publishers thought Secret Knowledge would be better.
Tells you like something inside and nobody knows.
Yeah, but I think it was also lost.
But listen, what the subtitle is, Rediscovering the Lost Techniques of the Old Masters. Do you have any doubt that they use this technique?
No, I don't know.
You don't.
I mean,
you are 100% believer.
To see them is to use them. I'm not suggesting, I don't know quite how, but once you've seen them, you know they use them because they look like paintings, actually. Suddenly you've got, you know, tonalities made different. I mean, harmonies that are very beautiful.
Some might say, okay, David, let's say you're right. So what?
So what? The interesting thing is actually not because of art history in the past. The interesting thing is because of today, really. Because, in a sense, we're back to a hand in a camera. What I'm suggesting is the hand was in the camera for 400 years. Then chemicals were in the camera for 180.
Yeah.
But now there's digits in it. And that means...
Digital cameras.
You can move things about. Anybody can.
Yeah.
Meaning you're drawing. Isn't that drawing?
Yeah.
If you're moving something about, that's what you're doing. Well, in a way, that's now getting very, very big. Are we therefore losing a veracity that we believed before for 170 years? We're therefore going back, going forward and going back to the construction of pictures with the lens and the hand.
Why haven't art historians all agreed with you? Why do many of them say, not so fast?
Well, that's all they're saying. They're not disagreeing.
No, okay, that's right. That's what they're saying.
You can't, actually, because the science is there.
Yeah. I want to come to this because we got this great video. Talk me through it as we look at this. We're seeing what you're talking about. What is that?
That's, there's the projection of the baptistry. That's the mirror on a stand, you see? That's, it's still got the handle on it.
Yes.
In fact, still got the price on the back, actually. Okay. But there is a clear projection of the baptistry from that mirror. Now, the laws of optics do not change. That a mirror would have done that in 1420. And look at the lines. I'm pointing out that because it's an octagonal building, you get the diagonal lines. All I'm suggesting is Brunelleschi must have known this, seen it. Then, of course, he goes home and works out the mathematical laws of perspective. But I think he had to see that first. And there's no reason he would tell anybody. He was a very secretive man. He didn't...
Ah, but see, there you come. There's no reason he would tell anybody.
There isn't, no.
Why wouldn't he tell anybody? Why would he not tell anybody?
He didn't. I mean, after all, he was building the dome in Florence. And it's known how secretive he was. He would not tell them how he was going to do it. You know, the famous story about the eggs. He suggests, how can you stand an egg up? 3 eggs. Yeah. And they don't do it. And then he just squashes it and it stands up. And he'd say, well, we could have done that. He said, yes, but you didn't, and I did it, and I will do the dome. But he did not tell them. He did not tell all the people who were paying for it exactly how he was going to do it, because there were competitors. He's in business as well. So there are perfectly good reasons, it seems to me. And how can you deny, as I say, the science is there. Now, art historians would say he had a frame with little squares and he'd have to look. What's the difference between the mirror doing it and doing that? Really?
Now, do art historians believe this detracts from artists?
Sorry,
do the art historians who are not yet...
Nobody totally disagrees. I mean, what we're talking about...
What's the point of dispute, then?
Well, I'm not sure myself, actually. I've never been that sure. I've... probably the dates, as I say, the mirror was not known about. Yeah. So we've shown that, we've demonstrated that. Now that does push, you then can push it further back. Now, 1 or 2, I don't know the experts of Van Eyck, I don't know them, but certainly some of the experts on Caravaggio certainly agreed with me straight away. Yes, they did.
Absolutely.
Yes, John Spike did.
Yeah. How about Vermeer?
Well, yes, and many people have said Lawrence Gowing's book of years ago just assumed he used a camera. Didn't go into how.
Yeah, they have always assumed that.
It doesn't matter how, actually. That's less important. The fact that this picture was seen. And remember, it's a moving picture in colour. How would you describe it before photography?
Right. Let me see the other clip here. Take a look at this. This will show you. What am I seeing here?
This is, again, this is a mirror projection of a friend of mine sitting outside in California. There he is. There's a hole, I have a hole in the wall. We had a mirror here, back here, projected it at the side there. I made a few marks. Now I'm drawing from life. Yeah. And this was because of the only known Van Eyck drawing, seemed to me to look a bit like an Arndt drawing, I thought. Really? Had this a certain optical look, what I call an optical look. And we demonstrated this here. I mean, my drawing is a bit crude. I did a better one. I got him dressed up as a cardinal, actually, more like Van Eyck. But nevertheless, you produce, of course, it doesn't do the drawing. I did the drawing. I made the marks. The artist makes the marks. But
so any kind of help that an artist gets to make his marks in no way detracts from his talent.
No. I mean...
Whatever. I mean, for example, let's assume it was...
Remember, this is an ephemeral thing. These projections, before photography, you could only see them for a short while, only when the sun is shining, when there's light there. How many people would see them? Very few people would see them. Photography, suddenly, this is on a piece of paper.
So if an artist uses a ruler or something to make a straight line?
I think, I mean, I'm pretty certain I'm right, actually, about it. Yes, I'm very certain. I don't think there's too much argument, actually. I think...
So what are you guys going to talk about on Saturday?
Well, remember, this is organised by Ren Wesher, who wrote the piece in the New Yorker. And certainly, I know there's quite a few people who'll be there who followed it and agree. Yeah. It's just, I don't know the techniques used, but neither does anybody else.
All right, let me take a look at some paintings here. Let's take a look at the first one and tell me what do we see here?
Well, that was an Arng drawing.
Right. Madame Louise Francois Garin.
Now, I'm pointing out, look at the head, which is a tiny bit big, and her hands in relation to the head seem very high up.
Yeah.
You see that? I can see that. Meaning, the proportion is slightly odd, which I would have thought was caused by him using a camera lucida. I also think the lines, especially of the clothes, those were the lines that reminded me of Warhol.
Really?
Yes. When I
well, Warhol acknowledged that he used.
Pardon?
Didn't Warhol acknowledge that he used certain kinds of devices, didn't he?
Yes. He would project a photograph.
Right.
But actually, even Andy did them on his own. No one was there when he made his drawings.
Now, what does that say to you?
Well, it says, tells you the same thing. I mean, people are a little bit secretive about tools like that. I mean...
So that's why we call it secret knowledge.
Yeah, I think. I mean, they're secretive today about techniques like that.
Why, though? I want to keep going. Doesn't that suggest a certain sense of, well, maybe I don't want them to know that I'm...
Yes, it does, but I think that's deep in our nature, perhaps. I mean, that's human nature about something. In the book, for instance, there's a story about a Dutch painter, Terentius, and Christian Huygens had been to London and bought a camera in 1620, and he's demonstrating it to friends in The Hague.
Yeah.
And Terentius comes along and feigns ignorance about what is happening. He pretends to be, and Huygens notices this and realizes he's pretending he's never seen it.
Yeah.
That's 1620. I think you'd still have that today, actually. I mean, perhaps, and Huygens said Terentius would have liked to have claimed total skill, you see. People wanted to think, oh, he did this.
Now, is the significance of your premise, that this occurs over a longer span of the history of Western art?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Take a look at this. Speaking of that, this is Johann Vermeer, the milkmaid. Johannes Vermeer.
Now, marvelous picture. Absolutely
great
marvelous picture. Somehow that milk seems to be running.
Exactly.
Isn't it? It's amazing.
It is amazing.
Very, very beautiful. Now, on the far wall of that is a basket that is quite in focus, actually, and then a shiny little piece of metal, you can see, but the basket in the foreground is actually out of focus. Now, we don't see out of focus. We don't. I mean, our eye moves.
Right.
I think there are quite a lot of clues that he had seen projections, and I suspect he had perhaps a better lens than Caravaggio. Yeah. His neighbour, I mean, all right, they'll say Vermeer, there's no lenses left.
Caravaggio was his neighbour?
No, his Vermeer's neighbour was Mr. Leeuwenhoek, who made telescopes and made lenses. Oh, yeah. Yes. Now, he was also the executor of his will. The lenses would belong to Mr. Leeuwenhoek, I suppose. He would lend them. I mean, he would know. They would make pictures. Lenses make pictures. They're making one now.
There you go.
And
all right, go ahead.
He would tell, I mean, Vermeer would look at it, and I'm sure because of the beautiful colour, it tells me the lens was a bit bigger. That's all it would need to be to show colour, just a bit bigger. It's letting in more light.
Okay, next. This is Lorenzo Lotto's husband and wife. Now, this is sort of significant for you, is it not?
Well, because I don't know whether you can see it there, but in the pattern on the tablecloth, there's a point where just to the right of his hand...
It goes out of focus.
It goes out of focus. Now, for instance, I point out, we notice this. I notice this because we have a good colour reproduction. Now, that's only in the last 20 years that you could see that. Meaning, new technology has enabled us to look at this painting. The painting is in St. Petersburg. I'm in LA, looking at it in a book. 20 years ago, that painting might have been reproduced in black and white, small, and I wouldn't see it. You wouldn't see it. But we did see it and thought, well, that is clearly out of focus, and he's had to paint it out of focus. And it was that Charles Falco, when I showed it to him, picked up saying, you can make calculations from this.
Charles Falco's an optical scientist.
He's an optical scientist who came to visit after Ren Wechsler's piece in the New Yorker.
Yeah, this is Lawrence Welschler, who wrote first in the New Yorker and then a larger piece.
He was, first of all, rather amusing and interesting to meet a scientist. His connection with art was through motorbikes.
Yeah.
He's a motorbike.
In fact, he had something, he curated the Guggenheim motorcycle exhibit.
Art of the motorcycle.
Right.
And, but he then was very helpful because suddenly he could make, he said, yes, you can calculate things from this. And I'm just working on hunches, but I do know that it will be very difficult to paint that pattern by eye. And if you were doing it by linear perspective, it wouldn't go out of focus. Because you would calculate how the pattern is receding, you see.
For you, how a painting was produced is as important as why.
Well, because how images are made just tell us a lot about the images, doesn't it? Even on a television picture it does. How they are made, who is deciding where the edges are. Of course it does. I mean, that would bring us to today as well, I would think.
Boy, this is great stuff. David Hockney, Secret Knowledge, Rediscovering the Lost Techniques of the Old Masters. There's going to be a, conference meeting, debate, session at New York University this weekend.
Very limited seating.
Very limited seating, so you may not be able to get in if you go or something. But there will be a discussion. Some smart art historians will be there, and whether there's conflict, controversy, or not, they'll talk. Thank you, David. Pleasure.
Very good.
We'll be right back. Thanks.